Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Boring Susan and today I'm going to be discussing how to afford designer in 2021. These are all my tips and tricks on how to do that, and I'm telling you, if you use all of these tips and tricks that I have, you will be super successful in getting really affordable, awesome quality handbags in 2021. Let me know down below what your #1 handbag is on your wish list. I would love to know. I've spent a lot of time the last couple of years trying to find the best affordable handbags because I don't have the biggest budget, but I want to have beautiful handbags in my collection. So I found the best ways to acquire these bags and also everything that I've learned along the way. And I'm telling you, if you use all the information I give you, you'll be wildly successful and have some great little handbags in your collection for a really awesome price. So tip #1, we're searching through the auction section on eBay and we're looking for Japanese resellers. Now, there is a plethora of resale in the Japanese market, and so a lot of those sellers are now putting all their content and product onto eBay to sell it to a wider audience. So it's really great, and why we're looking in the auction section is because what you're going to be buying is relative to the market value. So it's not going to go for, you know, this bag retails for $650, $1,000, whatever. It's going to be who's interested and who's looking at it in this very moment. And that's really fantastic because the auction world lets things be priced what the market value, what they're worth right now in this moment. I will also link down below my 5 or 6 sellers that I've used multiple times that I think are really reputable, but if you find some other sellers, these are some things to look for with purchasing from them. Now, tip #2. So when we're looking for sellers that we want to purchase from, we want to make sure that they have the top rated plus sellers icon next to their about section. What this shows is that eBay has qualified them to be a reputable seller. They've had tons of transactions and a lot of successful transactions, 4 out of 5 stars, 5 out of 5 stars. This is where you want to sit because sadly in 2021 there are still people trying to scam on the eBay market, so you want to make sure that you're actually using sellers who have a good reputation. This will be, if you scroll down, if you're on a mobile device, if you scroll down past it'll show like the shipping information, where it's shipping from, how you can purchase it, with what cards they have or whatever. Right down below that, it's going to show their about section, which shows it'll be their name, their overall rating, and it'll have that icon showing and saying if they're a top rated plus seller. This is really important, and if you don't see that icon, I would really look into the information and everything else you can find, but at this point, when I'm purchasing designer, I don't like to use sellers that don't have that because I know for sure that those are going to be the people who are the most reputable on eBay. Tip #3, always consider the market. This is super important and you want to be looking into the information that's shown because you want to know what is it bags on the market, what's saturated, what are trendy, and everything like that, because since we're working with a market value environment, the prices are going to be dictated by who else is interested, and trends are going to be a huge part of that. And also now that we've seen vintage styles be overall more popular, we're going to see a lot of surplus and people wanting to purchase in the vintage sections. Not only that, we also want to equate for certain styles that have been seen a lot in the resale market that end up being the new it bags. A lot of times when there's a surplus of bags that you can get for a really reasonable price on the resale market, a lot of times those same styles end up being the styles that are super trendy the next season because everyone got them for a really great price, or a plethora of people, not everybody, but got it for, you know, a couple $100, and then everyone's wearing it, you see it on bloggers, you see it on everybody, and boom, it's the next it bag. We saw this with the Dior saddle bag. There was a huge saturation in the market and it ended up being super popular, and then Dior reissued it, and now that style is still what I think was popular over 2 years ago. It's still something where on the vintage resale market you can't get it for the same prices you used to before, and it's still an it bag. We've also seen that with the Pochette Matisse. This was also a style that was super popular, hard to get your hands on for a while because there were some manufacturing issues, and so even the resale bags were going for about what they were worth brand new because people just wanted to get their hands on it. So I would really check and see what's going on, what's trendy in the market. And I will say, pro tip, is you're going to find a lot of the styles that you see again and again, especially if you look through the sellers that I showed, there's normally a couple styles that you see trending again and again, and not necessarily the classic styles that tend to be pretty saturated on the pre-loved market, but interesting styles that you may not know the names of or you may not have seen before. But if you see a couple of them, realize that a lot of times those styles will end up being the trendy style and then will eventually be reissued because a lot of people are interested in from them. We're seeing that now with the Amazon bag from Louis Vuitton. That style was pretty saturated on the pre-loved market. I purchased it a couple years ago, and then when I got it for a really great rate, and then they were going for a little bit more last year, and now we're seeing Louis Vuitton re-release the Amazon bag, which is really awesome. But the interesting thing about that, for the people who haven't purchased it, now that style is going to be more expensive to get. Tip number 4. Watch a couple of these auction sales before purchasing. Why I say that is because if you've never watched auction sales at the end, it's good to know how they end up working out, because a lot of times it gives you a lot of information about what you're going to want to look for when you're purchasing these styles. Maybe even if you see 2 or 3 of the style that you're looking for, add a little like to them or heart them on your watch list on eBay, and then you can watch them throughout the couple days until the bidding ends and see kind of where they ended at. Why this is great is because it gives you more research into the bags that you're looking for, and it also has you understand the market and kind of what people do. If you've never done any auction sales before, I'd really recommend looking and kind of getting a feel for how they end up going, because a lot of them tend to be pretty similar. Tip number 5, because as you're looking for these styles, you see some you're interested in, never bid early. Never bid early, never bid early, never bid early. I cannot say this enough. I don't understand why people do this, because you're really just bringing up the price and making it more expensive when it gets to the end of the auction. Normally you have a 3 to 5 day span on when the auction starts to when it finishes, and what people do is a lot of people like to get in early and put some bids in, because you'll see, you know, a really nice Louis Vuitton or Dior, Chanel, and you're like, oh, $30, of course I'll put a $35 bid. But it never ends up going for those prices. It always goes for the prices at the end, which are quite significantly higher than the original prices, since everything starts at 99 cents, a dollar, or 0, I think is where it actually starts. You don't want to do that, because you're just making the price go higher. Also, you're letting other people know that you're also interested. And we want to know that information from the outside standpoint. We want to lurk and we want to see who else is interested, so we can kind of get a feel for the market in that exact bag. Oh, this is a good thing to note. A lot of times someone's first bid is the last bid is the winning bid. So the people who play it smart understand to not really let themselves be known in the auction scene and kind of come in the last second. And that's really what you want to do to win these successfully. So don't bid early. If you see a style you like, put it on your watch and just watch it from a distance. It's also really good information to see who else is interested and how many people, because a lot of times it can dictate how expensive that style will go. If you see something that has, in the same style, and it has 13 bidders and another style has 3 bidders, well, probably when they get to the end of it, there's probably more interest in that other style, and you might get a better deal on the other style if you stick around long enough. You want to lurk, and you want to see who else is interested. This will also come in handy too when it comes down to the last couple days or even the last hour. A lot of times the one that has more bidders interacting with it potentially will go for a higher price, because you have a lot more people being like, I value this, this is something I want. Whereas if you have 5 or 6 bidders on something, you might have some people be like, I'm not interested in this anymore, or you're more likely to end up purchasing that bag. And of course there's going to be other lurkers, so you're not the only one, but don't be a dummy, don't bid early. I'm telling you, it's a waste. Unless it's in like the last hour, that's when I start. Maybe if a bag hasn't seen a lot of action, then I'm like, well, let's see who else is on this. Sometimes then, but not normally. We'll leave that at a sometimes, because I have done that a couple times. Oh, last note on the never bidding early. A lot of sellers also have where you can only be winning 1 bid from them, 1 winning bid at the same time, if that makes sense. So I can't have 3 bids, 3 winning bids from 1 seller at the same time. A lot of times you can only have 1 from a certain seller. So also be intentional, because if you put a bid on something that has 3 more days and there's something that's running out in the next hour, you're not going to get that hour more likely than not unless someone outbids you on that 3-day one, and people are paying less attention to the ones that have a longer span of time. So just don't do it. I'm just telling you now. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Please don't do it. I get so irked, and I don't understand why people do it, because everyone's just writing up the price for no reason. Like, just wait and sit it out. Tip number 6. I want you to research the bag that you're interested in purchasing. Let's say you find one on the pre-loved market, or you already find one that you know that you're interested in. Look at what it retails for new. Look at what it average retails for used from sites like Tradesy, Fashion File, The RealReal, anything else that you can find it. What you want to do is you want to compare those prices, because a lot of times it gives you better clarity on what you should spend that'll actually be worth your money. You don't really want to get like a $200 savings from the new price. You want to get a $200, $300 savings from the used price. price, that's where you're going to be saving the most amount of money. Depending on the style, certain styles, again, that's why we do our market research, everything like that, because you might have some different decisions on that. Most of the time though, you can get it for under $300 for most percent of the styles. That one's a quick tip, but it's super important. This is going to give you a good understanding of where you should be for your price point when you're purchasing in the auction. Tip number 7, I could be wrong. Set your max bid and then set your super max bid. Now that you have an understanding of what it retails for new, used, what you would pay for it if you're buying it conveniently, just add to bag and it's on the way. Now figure out where you should sit with the auctions. You should have looked at this point a couple auctions already of that item and seen what it retails for. That should give you a really good understanding of where you should sit. But you want to set your super max bid because a lot of times in the action it gets super crazy and you tend to make very short-minded decisions, and that's kind of where they get you. That's why auctions are still relevant these days, because you tend to spend more money when you're not thinking for more than like a second when you have 3 seconds left on the clock. So I would recommend setting those kind of boundaries of what you're willing to spend. Set your original max and then set a super max. I normally find the super max is where the price will end up falling, and even within that super max, I set a couple numbers higher of what I'd be upset about losing to. Let's say the bag goes for $5 over my super max. I will probably be a little bit upset about it because I'm like, I would be willing to pay $5 more. So figure out also where the realm is. I did purchase my Louis Vuitton Keepall, which I have right here. Hi, she's cute. And I ended up winning it. I ended up putting in $318 for the bid, and I won it at $316, meaning that the person who lost it to me lost it by $1. Their bid was $315. So it really works. So set those numbers. And also something to mention with the max setting your bids, you also want to consider shipping prices. A lot of times the styles that have free shipping will go for more expensive. The styles that have $15 shipping, you'll see less interest, and $30 shipping, not as many people are interested. Now, how this is helpful is because a lot of times people will just dismiss it if it has like $30 shipping, and it'll end up going cheaper overall, including shipping, than the price of some of the free shipping ones, if that makes sense. So a lot of times I do recommend still keeping those around, unless they go to a super large price where you're not willing to pay that anymore, then obviously take it off your list. But I would say keep those in your loop, because a lot of times you can get really great styles that have that extra fee that still end up going for cheaper compared to the free shipping option. So let's say the free shipping option went for $350 and the $30 shipping one went for like $300. Now you're only paying $330 instead of $350. I would really check that out because I have gotten into that situation a couple of times and it has been super beneficial. So tip number 8, use a weird number. You're going to want to do a high end of a low number, if that makes sense. So this is just going to trick people up. So you're going to want to do numbers higher than 5. So you're going to do like a 6 or preferably 7, 8, 9. So when you're thinking, let's say it's at $185, instead of just skipping to like 190 or doing 200, a lot of times it's short intervals that it ends up ending at, do like 189 or something to throw people off, because what it does is it gets people thinking past the $5 intervals, which they're traditionally going to do. So let's say, for example, my Keepall bag, it ended up being the last person to bid it was at $315. I put in $318 and won it at $316. That's pretty awesome. That's $1 difference. So you want to think in those regards. It doesn't have to be that close, but you do want to consider that people are going to be going by very traditional intervals, especially since you're thinking really quick on your feet with numbers. It's easy. So you want to trick them up and do super weird numbers because you're more likely to get that purchase. It is pretty crazy, and when it gets down to the last 3 seconds, that's when you're going to want to put your big bid in. And normally I would say do one of those weird numbers, because 3 seconds is the great golden rule, because it gives the system enough time to process it, especially if you have bad internet service or whatever it may be, and then it'll get it in, and normally in the last 3 seconds it doesn't refresh the actual outside page, so you don't know until it announces the winner if you got it or not. And you could do it at 2 seconds, but that's really risky. 3 seconds works magic for me, and I just put my highest interval that's not quite past what I'm willing to spend. But you want to do it within those super weird intervals because it'll get people on their toes and they're not thinking like that. Why that makes sense is because if you're thinking about, let's say you're willing to spend like $450, well, let's say that something's at like $435. well, someone's going to think, oh, okay, my next bid's going to be $440. Well, what if you were thinking a little bit ahead of them and we're like, oh, let's do $443 or $446, $447, something that's super weird so that you're more likely to think one step ahead, right? Because they're thinking the next $5, you're thinking the next $8, which is super weird. And that tends to be the winner. So think about those higher intervals that you can do that throw people off, that aren't so traditional and easy to do. Easy math, really. What can you do that's going to trick people up and be like, oh, I only want to spend $10 more, and then they have to do math and they lose it. That's what you really want to do up in here. I'm telling you it works. If that doesn't make sense, let me know down below. I'm trying to explain it the best as I can, but it's confusing to explain, so you know it gets people tricked up in the auction, so it really does work. Tip number 9. It's a competitive market. You're going to find another style if you don't win this one. A lot of times with that all or nothing 3-second bid is, sometimes you don't win it. And that's okay. A lot of times you will, though, if you use these tricks. But don't get caught up in the I want it now kind of mindset, because if you stick to your price, you'll find one that actually wins. A lot of times I think people get carried away in the auction scene where, I really want this, I need to get it now, and they put a ridiculous number in, and you're like, that just really wasn't worth that. It was just because you were thinking so quickly on your toes. So understand that the market is saturated. You will find another one if you don't end up getting that one that you're looking for. And sometimes it takes a couple times. My keep all, I had about 5 other bids that I did before that I lost to, and then I finally got it for the price I was looking for. So sometimes it takes that couple tries, and a lot of times one will end up happening. So that's why I normally keep a couple on my watch list, so I can see everything trickle down. And a lot of times it happens in the same night. I think I had 3 other styles I was bidding on that same night. I would say the only time that doesn't apply is if it's a really weird style that you can't find. A lot of times, though, those styles go for super inexpensive. I had my Gucci style here. I have this Gucci style here. $86. So sometimes the weird quirky that this doesn't, I don't even know the name of it, but super great price. So sometimes that happens too, where you can get it for a really extremely good price. But let's say you were looking for that exact style and willing to spend more, then yes, of course, do that. But that's the only time I would say. If you see like 6 or 7 of that style from sellers, don't just go beyond the price that you're wanting to pay, that you've seen being paid before. That's a good deal, because I'm guaranteeing you, if you're consistent, you can get that good deal. Tip number 10, you want to keep in mind duty taxes. Now, it depends on where you're purchasing from. If it's obviously international transaction or whatnot, over a certain value, it will be taxed. I think in the USA, from like Japan in particular, it's really hard to say because they don't know exact items, and even the site's like, well, it really depends on what it is and how much it's valued at and all these things. I think it's around $800 to $1,600 is where you'll begin to get that taxed. And it depends on where it's going, where it's coming from, and all those factors, but it is on higher value. So if you're looking to spend that much, keep in mind there's duty taxes. I haven't had to deal with that yet because I don't normally spend over like $400 on my styles. So if you have any information on that, if you've done that before, or let's say you do that and then have the taxes, comment down below and let the community know, because I don't know exactly. And as I said, it does depend on where it's shipping to and where it's shipping from, because that'll affect the cost. But normally it is of higher value. It's not going to be the under $400, $500, technically under $700, but it was hard to get an exact number because it just depends. I think especially if you're shopping Chanel and some Christian Dior, you will be in that higher price points. So just keep that in mind. A lot of times Louis Vuitton, certain Gucci styles, Fendi, a couple other brands like that, you won't really have that issue with, but you want to keep that in mind because you don't want to be shocked that you have an extra fee to pay for, because that would be annoying. Anyways, those are my 10 tips and tricks of getting affordable handbags in 2021 off of eBay. I really hope this helps. It should help. These should be the winning techniques of getting those awesome, affordable, crazy, amazing styles. I can't wait. Let me know if you apply these and if you get some awesome styles. I would love to know. But thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one. My outro is coming in 3, 2, 1. If there's one thing you get from this video, don't bid early.